Okay, and action. And cue playback.
Letter from an Old Boy has been commissioned by Aberlour, which is Scotland's leading children's charity. And back in 1914, at the beginning of the war, they were an orphanage. And they have a collection of letters that were sent from soldiers that came from the orphanage and went to war. And they sent these letters back to the orphanage.
Dear Mrs. Campbell and all the boys and girls at the Aberlour orphanage.
Because it's been 100 years since the First World War, we were commissioned to create a piece that kind of celebrated these letters. So basically we combined quotes from the piece and threaded them together with our own narrative to create a piece that was cinematic, because although these letters were very visual and interesting to read, they didn't necessarily have a distinctive narrative running throughout, so it was our job to kind of create that.
We had a grand time together. We were stationed so close to each other and did not know it. The thought struck us that
The idea of setting something in a trench is obviously an iconic image of the First World War. And the fact that these letters were written home from the front line amidst all this kind of chaos and the war that was going on around them, I think said something about the attitudes of these soldiers. There's lots of descriptions about the weather and descriptions about their relationships with each other, and in a way that you would think would maybe have seemed a bit trivial. But I guess there was something nice about that fact that that was their day-to-day lives.
Playback.
October 3rd, 1918.
It's all set in the same trench, but in different situations. We've got in 1914 is the kind of start of the war. There's a bit of optimism, but really just kind of getting used to their experiences. In 1915 it shows a bit more of the kind of jovial nature of the evenings sitting down and having stew, and he's talking about how one of the worst things that he can think of is the fact that they get stew for dinner every day, which again seems like it wouldn't be of much concern of someone that was in the middle of a battle. And then in 1916 we've got in the midst of the battle, and then 17 after the battle, so we've got this kind of still silence of kind of reflecting on the horrors that have just happened. And then in 1918 there's a bit of optimism and a bit of a sense of the war's coming to an end.
It was incredibly ambitious to achieve a period piece on such a small budget, so my main concern was making sure that the piece looked authentic and was realistic to the time period, but within budget. We had the basic outline of a set. We shot on a World War II gun site, but we still needed to build a trench, make it look like it was in the First World War, and the materials we used within the trench it was basically man-made by us, so that was a huge expenditure, and making sure that the costumes were specific to the time period.
And action, playback.
Playback.
13th, 1916.
Our art director was Nicky Stewart, who is a recent graduate of the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland. So working with her was a really, obviously again on the budget we had was quite a big challenge. Obviously we had to create things from scratch. We had a basic trench shape that was made out of red brick and concrete, so it did not look like a World War I trench. It was only about that high about a metre off the ground, so we needed a lot more. So with Nicky we built mud walls made out of polystyrene. So we created the fake walls. We hired sandbags from a prop store. And with lots of other pieces, just to make it feel like we were really in a real environment. So our costume designer was Robert McFarlane, who does a lot of work with the BBC Alba unit, doing their historical reenactments. So he's got a really good understanding of the area of history we were looking at anyway. And so it was really helpful to have him for the kind of specific details of what would have happened when. So the difference between we would only have had the gas mask bags in 1915 and not 1914, and stuff that he knows a lot about that maybe we wouldn't have picked up on, because we were trying to create a bit of kind of drama, and he can bring a lot of historical accuracy to it, which is really helpful in terms of costume.
I'm absolutely sick of it, and so is everyone else.
Because Aberlour is a Scottish charity, it was important to us to use Scottish actors within the project. The Conservatoire has a reputation for producing some of the best Scottish actors in the industry, so we knew automatically we wanted to look at casting from there.
And also for the orphanage house mother, I had Kath Howden in my mind since the start, having seen her in numerous TV productions and stuff like that. I just thought she would be perfect for it. And when we contacted her agent, she was completely up for it and loved the script. So that was perfect. Working with the actors was great. Everyone knew their parts, which I think was really important. They knew the intent they had to get across, and it was really because there's so much else going on a set. So it was really important that the actors knew what they were there for and were able to do a bit of work themselves as well. But no, they were all fantastic and intuitive, and their intuition was a really important part of making this right. So the film was photographed by David Lovell, who is a recent graduate of the National Film and Television School. It was shot on the Red One cinema camera, so we had a good thing to start with anyway, but the fact that he's got such a keen eye for sort of artistic photography, it really helps in bringing these things to life, picking off lots of lovely close-ups, while also giving the sense of the space around us. We've got lots of intimate details with the characters. I mean, I think the highlight of the day, of the shoot anyway, was certainly seeing the first shot through the camera. Because although we've got all the actors there, they look great in their costumes, we've got the set there, it looks fantastic. I think just seeing it on camera kind of made me relax a bit, because it was nice to see a bit of what the final thing was going to look like. Because up until then, I'd never really tackled anything, certainly not of this period, but anything on this kind of scale when it comes to a period piece. But also quite exciting. It was exciting as well to see a bit of what the final thing was going to look like.
January 6th, 1917. I do not yet know whether this letter will ever reach you. We have just suffered one of the worst shellings I have ever experienced since the war began. I have time only to write you a few lines.
The weather conditions were quite difficult on set. It's pretty much a given that it was going to be raining, given the fact we were shooting in Scotland in the middle of November. But I thought everyone dealt with the conditions really well, and it also kind of fitted the tone of the piece, because it only actually began to rain in the second half of the day, and that kind of fitted the kind of low and melancholic mood of the final two scenes.
It was raining, the trench was a muddy swimming pool, everyone was soaking, but it was great. I think it worked out well. Wet but great.